Hello Fanatics, I'm Dylan Phillips, and let's talk about the second half of Season 5 of Netflix's Arrested Development. First, we'll tell you our recap of the show, followed up by a review, and then we'll finish off with telling you if it's worth the watch. Created by Mitchell Hurwitz, Arrested Development follows the story of the dysfunctional Bluth family, who absolutely despise each other, and yet always find themselves drawn back together. So, recap time. The main story of Arrested Development Season 5 Part 2 revolves around the ongoing mystery surrounding Lucille 2's disappearance. With tensions mounting, the police arrest Buster and put him on trial for murder. Meanwhile, the Bluth company is reminded of their obligation for a border wall, which puts them in debt and jeopardizes exposing the fake antisocial software Fake Block. The gay mafia gets involved as their interests start to clash with those of the Bluths, and Tobias tries to find a new home for his oddball family. Arrested Development may have improved slightly since Netflix first bought it, but it hasn't improved back to the success of the original run. In fact, most of 5B feels like a routine as it just keeps going in circles with the same mishaps and mayhem. Luckily, the actors are more available for this, and therefore there is more interaction between them within the scenes. However, this doesn't help fix a lot of the issues that go wrong with this season. The first thing is the style of this show, as Arrested Development was always lauded for its unique style, and yet somehow in this past season and a half, it has become the weakest aspect. The plot is extremely exposition heavy, which makes it very difficult to follow and actually enjoy beyond it being more than just a chore to watch. And on top of that, the rapid-fire jokes that they're putting into it seem to cut over the exposition or vice versa, making it hard to truly understand everything when you're watching it for the first time. And the visuals look like last-minute additions that were made in an introductory Photoshop class. Beyond the style, there are still many issues with this show. With the disappearance of Lindsay and Lucille 2, and the sidelining of Lucille and Maybe, the show has become very male-dominant. And that isn't to say that these male characters aren't enjoyable to watch, it's just that the majority of them are more enjoyable when they are basically the supplement to their female counterpart. Tobias, George, and Oscar all become tiresome characters, as we have to watch them more now that their female counterparts are sitting on the sidelines, making them more infuriating and boring as time progresses. It goes to show that in the Bluth family, the women run the show. Well, that is of course except for Michael, who's supposed to be the protagonist of this show, and yet it feels like in this entire season he too was sidelined, and it became a show without a true protagonist. He's supposed to be the straight main character that looks at this family and comments on their absurd behavior, but instead he falls into the same absurdities and does things that we wouldn't expect of the Michael from the earlier seasons. Now of course, thankfully there are a few bright spots in this second half. Hurwitz is able to write some great genre jokes that parody legal dramas and murder mysteries. And these jokes are not necessarily plot-driven, but more tangent-driven, which is where Arrested Development's comedy thrives. The actors also have a lot more to work with here now, as they're actually in scenes together. And towards the end of the season, some of the characters get somewhat satisfying conclusions to their stories. There's even a fitting series finale in case this show is shelved at Netflix and this is the end of its run. So, with the thoughts heard, here's our final word. This season of Arrested Development is pretty much just more of the same. While there are a few chuckles throughout and the actors finally share some scenes together, the cyclical storyline has become stale with its self-imploding style and tiresome characters. Thankfully, through it all, they managed to find a way to put a fitting end to this family's chaotic story. From its overdone stylistic choices to its mundane, repetitive humor, this season finally puts the Bluths out of their misery. So I'm gonna say it's not worth the watch. And that's our recap and review on the second half of Season 5 of Arrested Development. If you've seen it, what did you think? Was it worth the watch? Let us know in the comments below. I'm Dylan Phillips, and thanks for watching.